welcome to The Journey, a podcast to help you be the very best parent you can be. We are thrilled you are here and that we get to do life together. We are here to serve your family, and we're thankful you're joining us on The Journey.
All right. Hey, parents, welcome back to The Journey. Got a good friend, Matt Shaheen, with us. And Matt, I want to, before we dive in, we're going to talk about a particular bill that you have that's at the Supreme Court. But I want to tell our parents that maybe some of the things we're going to talk about is a little bit more of mature content because you're trying to protect our children and our families. And so if parents are listening to this and they have younger children listening, this could lead to some conversations that you don't want to necessarily have right now. So it might be a good time to take the younger children, let them go do something else, because we're going to talk about some important legislation that you passed in the last legislative session and now is in front of the Supreme Court. So super thrilled to have you here. I appreciate your time. Really excited about some of the things that are just happening in our state and in our country. Feels like kind of, fresh beginnings, right? Moving in a new direction. I know that you and I both enjoyed watching our friend Scott Turner. Being up there at the inauguration and being introduced as Trump's nomination for the Secretary, Housing and Urban Development, the HUD Secretary. So pretty exciting things that are happening going on around here. Are you feeling that as well?
Oh gosh, yeah, it was really awesome. Exactly what you're talking about. Our own associate pastor from Prestonwood, and Scott Turner and I are dear friends. And
you guys served a couple times.
We did. We sat next to each other on the Texas House floor and used to talk to him all the time, spent a lot of late nights together on the floor. So, yeah, he's overly qualified for the position, obviously having served under a HUD previously when Trump was president. But, yeah, having him in that type of position is just incredibly exciting. He's going to do so much for our inner cities that need so much support. Yes. And so, of course, he'll bring that godly perspective, which we're in desperate need of. And he's going to do a good job. So I'm excited for him and our nation.
Yes. Now, before the inauguration, you were actually in D.C. For your case. Yeah. And so last legislative session, you passed a bill that looked at adult websites, porn sites, and trying to get them to have age verification. So that kids under 18 can't get on those particular sites, right? The lower courts upheld that. And this case is called the Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton, which I always laugh, right, when it's Free Speech Coalition, right, that they're so interested in, free speech.
It's a bunch of pornographic websites.
It's a bunch of pornographic websites, making sure, right, that this access gets down to as young as possible kids as they can, because they want to get them hooked and addicted on this garbage.
That's exactly right.
Right, so your case is there in front of the Supreme Court, but just bring us up to speed with what it's about, what the case is, and what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, we passed HB 1181 last session, and all it does is it requires age verification be performed by these pornographic websites. And it's no different than the online websites that sell tobacco or anything else that might be age specific, right, or age restricted. And so it's that same process. And instead of abiding by that law, the pornographic websites band together, and not only did they sue us and fight us, but they even went to the step where they removed access from the state of Texas as far as to their websites, which, by the way, I was perfectly fine with.
It's perfect for us.
In fact, I'm told that if you try to go to their website and you're in the state of Texas, you'll get this message saying, blame your state representative for not being able to access our materials, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
your state representative that you can't get to this terrible stuff that you shouldn't get to anyway.
And so very reasonable. Again, we made it incredibly easy, quite frankly, for them to implement the age verification. They have a bunch of different options on how to do that. And so they're fighting us, like you articulated. It went through the court system and went before the Supreme Court. Orals were last Wednesday. Okay. And like you said, I was just incredibly honored not only to speak in front of the Supreme Court to a rally there of concerned individuals, parents, and the like about the legislation, about the Supreme Court case, but also had the opportunity to sit in the courtroom and actually listen to and watch the debate.
For the oral arguments.
Yeah.
First time there?
First time there.
That's a pretty neat thing.
Yeah. Oh, it was incredible, Dan. I mean, I'm sitting there in the courtroom, and all the justices that, quite frankly, we admire, Clarence Thomas and Alito and Kavanaugh, and I'm sitting there, and they're talking about my bill. Yeah. And quite frankly, I thought I was biased, but I thought they did a really good job defending the legislation. So we'll see how it goes. I'm told it's a fool's errand to try to predict what the Supreme Court's going to do.
Absolutely.
But just based on how the dialogue was going, I'm fairly optimistic that we're going to prevail. But we'll see in June.
Yeah. I think it is interesting, though, to watch our process at work, right? I mean, you've got local, state, federal government, right, looking at different things in each of their different purviews, right? But then you've got the different branches of government, right?
That's
so,
right.
Your job is to pass laws, right? The court's job is to say, hey, how do those laws match up versus our Constitution, right? Are these things that we can do and that we should be doing, right? So you put all those together, and it's neat that you're able to get those laws passed, right, through the legislative process. We're electing, right, godly men and women like you to go there and do that, right? Put godly leadership, and Governor Abbott, right, from a Texas standpoint, these are things that he desperately wants done in the state of Texas, right? But then you've got to go up and you've got to go through the court system to make sure that
it's
these
fascinating.
things are
I mean,
legit.
I always, when I think through just the structure of our government, of civil government, and the founders were incredible in how they structure it, and of course it's ordained by the Lord. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
We work our arguments out through debate in the legislature and courts and through the court system, right? And versus physical altercations and the like. So yeah, it really is fascinating. Again, I'm pretty optimistic we're going to prevail, but we'll find out for sure in June.
Yeah, I've got a website of some good friends that I pay attention to, and this is what they wrote about this particular case. They said in 2023. Texas passed HB 1181 by Representative Matt Shaheen, a faith and family champion. Mm-hmm. And I love that, right? And that requires pornographic and sexually explicit websites to verify their users are 18 years of age or older. And it just, when you read it, you think, right? I mean, as President Trump said, right, in his inaugural address, right, common sense. You would think that's
well, that's what the Supreme
sense.
Court justices said. I mean, several of them were like, help us understand this, your opposition. Like, literally, you have to show a form of ID to get into a brick and mortar adult location. Sure. Why? What's the issue with an online website?
Right.
And I think it was Alito and Kavanaugh were pointing out, look, you got to do age verification if you do online and for online gambling where it's legal. You have to do age verification for tobacco. So what's the issue here?
And this is so much more accessible for our kids.
Oh, it's on their phone.
I mean, you're thinking about our kids going to a particular location where they would have to show ID to get in. They would never be able to get to that location. They can't drive, right? I mean, we're talking about kids who are as young as 6, 7, 8 years old are accessing this kind of material, and the courts are looking at this saying, wait a second, they can't access this material outside of the internet. Why should they be allowed to access it?
And sometimes they stumble at on accident, right? Like sometimes they're just
predatory.
doing searches and the like. That. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, we need to understand and be very, very clear here that these pornographic websites and others, they do want to expose our children to this. They do want to sexualize our children.
Absolutely.
Yes, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
There's an evil spiritual war that's part of this, and we need to recognize that, and we need to fight.
Yeah. Now, you're going into the legislative session, right? We're in session 140 days every 2 years. Texas is it's a part-time, not a full-time legislature. That's that legislative body, right? You're either in the legislature or you're running for your next term. But you really only get this 140 days from January until May. Mm-hmm. And then, you're off for, in a sense, a year and a half from being, in the legislature. But so you're walking in. Our legislature for this year has already begun.
That's right.
So you've been down to Austin. We're looking at some things that you're going to put forward. And I just wanted to kind of look at some of those other things. School choice is a big issue, and in Texas it's been kind of a little slow moving issue. There's other states, significant other states that have made great progress in the area of school choice, and different funding options and role and models and things like that. And so you guys have been able to look at, what you want to do, right? We're no longer in the, kind of the old days of the voucher program. I mean, they've got so many different things that they can do now. So it's great that we've watched other states do it and we've learned from that. But it's like, I think it's time for Texas to say, hey, this is something that we really do need to get done and get passed. So a lot of people are paying attention to that. I know that's one of the things that's kind of on your radar as well.
Oh, it's a big focus. Yeah, it's funny that Texas is a lot of times known for leading on certain issues, and we're not leading on this. Yeah. We're definitely trailing. I think we will prevail. I'm highly confident we're going to prevail this legislative session.
Yeah. Governor Abbott has made this a top priority.
He made it very clear during the election cycle. Actually, there's several Republicans that are not coming back. They lost their re-elections on this topic. Governor Abbott was very straightforward and very involved, I'll say, in the elections. Yeah. And so as a result, school choice had passed the Senate. It had died in the House. It came to the floor of the House, went up for a vote, and it didn't prevail. And so now you have a makeup of the Texas House that is pro-school choice. So high level of confidence that it will pass. Now the question is, what kind of form will it be? How many dollars will we allocate to it and that type of stuff? And watch the remaining, 130 days and see how it comes out. But I'm highly confident we're going to pass school choice this session.
I love that. Now, we're looking to hopefully take a group of students down to see you again.
Come on down.
You were always like, the end of March, beginning of April is a good time. Once you get to the end of April and into May, it's kind of crazy down there. And you guys are hard to access. But, for our parents, if you've never been down to the state capitol and just kind of seen how beautiful that building is, and the extension and all the different things that are down there, it's a great place to go visit. It's a great place to walk around, get some, great history from the state of Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of to see you guys in action, because you can actually go in the gallery for the House and the Senate. You can, pop in your, offices.
You can go anywhere
and
in
like
that Capitol building you want. It is their Capitol. And they can go anywhere they want.
And it's a beautiful, great place to be. So hopefully we'll get that done, and we'll come down and see you at the end of March or beginning of April with some students as well. Another issue that I'm concerned about from a parent perspective, and a lot of it is because we're with a lot of high school students, and I've noticed that a lot of our young men will have online gambling accounts.
Yeah.
And so they have access to this, right, on their phones, and you see the commercials for it now all the time, right? If you're watching a major sporting event, 2 or 3 of the commercials during that major sporting event are about online gambling. And so it's easily accessible, and it seems like it's not that big of a deal, but it really is an important thing from a gambling standpoint. A lot of these things are tied and connected together. And so, where are we in terms of Texas? I know that, we have been able to really stop a lot of the gambling from coming in, but then again, online, right, is
it's a different world.
It's a different world. So, what are we looking at doing? I know we're going to keep a lot of the physical gambling places out of Texas, which is great because we've seen the states that have those, and the promise. Right, that when these places come, all that money is going to change everything. And I'm like, wait a second. Have you driven across the border from Texas into one of the states that touches Texas, where they have gambling? And have you seen those states get any better?
Right.
And the answer is no.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
Here's the deal. The roads aren't better. The education isn't better. All the things that they promise when they come in, all the millions and tens of millions and billions of dollars that they're going to put in, they're going to put back in the state. And the thing is, I drive those roads. And the roads aren't better and the education's not better.
Ask the moms and dads that are listening, next time you drive into Oklahoma and you go by this casino, see if there's any of this massive development. Or go to Google Maps, look at it from a satellite image and see if there's any of this miraculous development around those casinos. You'll see there's not.
The casinos are developing.
But the casinos are, but then what you need to Google is how much increase in domestic violence there is, prostitution, other kind of criminal activities, sex trafficking, all those. So let's talk about those things, and then let's talk about, if they want to talk about increases in revenue, okay, let's talk about the additional people on welfare and the like, right, on Medicaid. So let's have the debate, but let's look at it broadly. So to answer your question. We're going to continue to fight the expansion of gambling. You're right that probably the makeup of the legislature, that's a little bit of a harder hill to climb, but that's not going to stop them. They're literally dumping millions of dollars and literally have over 100 lobbyists that are down in Austin trying to move the ball there. As far as the online piece, you're right, that's a little bit more challenging just because of the nature of the online world and just what we talked about as far as protecting children from being sexualized and accessing pornographic sites. So what we're looking at doing there, and we're still at the research stage, but we're actually looking at a broad law that says it's illegal in the state of Texas to advertise or promote an illegal activity.
Which makes
and
sense.
So if you think about it, it's not only just gambling. Some people are starting to get mail about marijuana, which is also against the law. Now, we've legalized some of the non-addictive chemicals that won't make you high, but there is a actual medical use. A lot of the claims about medical uses of marijuana are actually false, but there are some of the oils that do have certain types of benefits that the medical community tells us about. But all that to say is people are now starting to get ads. I received a mailer at my home about buying marijuana. And so we're looking at legislation to outlaw that. And we're still at the research stage because obviously you're talking about like a gambling website that is out of state. You're talking about the entity that's out of state.
Right.
So, how do you handle those dynamics? It's probably empowering the Attorney General and the like, but we're looking at actually outlawing the advertisement of illegal activity, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Now, a couple other things just from a state perspective, right? When President Trump in his inauguration speech talked about gender ideology,
Yes.
right? And he just let people know that from this point forward, under his administration, there's two genders.
That's right.
Male and female.
Yeah.
You guys have had to deal with this even on a state level, right?
Oh, yeah.
Public schools, athletics, transgender athletes and all the different things. Do you have anything that you guys are seeing coming up? Because I know you've dealt with it for the last couple sessions.
Yeah, we're looking at, I'm actually looking at some legislation so that all that type of ideology is taken out of our classrooms. And so, like, for example, we've banned DEI out of our colleges, right? So, but it could still exist into our high schools.
Okay.
We're looking at legislation. I actually have a draft piece of legislation right now where you can't promote that, the transgender ideology in our schools. I mean, our children are there to learn, be educated to go into the workforce, go to the military, or go to college, right? Yeah. And none of this other trash. But we've been highly successful. We've banned gender modification of children. We're protected women's sports. The problem is there's just this distortion out there. I think a lot of people are just looking for answers, and I think this is the area where people look for answers. Where Jesus Christ is the answer, and they're trying to fill that hole in their heart. And the good news is, I keep reading where Bible sales are increasing and going through the roof, and so it's coming upon you and me and all the moms and dads that are listening to share the hope and love of Jesus Christ to these people that are struggling and hurting and looking for answers, because He's obviously the answer. But I think this is a battle, again, just this overall attempt to sexualize our children.
Right.
This isn't a battle that's going to go away. It's going to change the form and fashion of how that battle gets executed, so we're always going to have to be vigilant. But in the state of Texas, we're making some great strides, but we have more work to do.
Yeah. Now, since Dobbs, overturned Roe versus Wade, the life issue, Texas has always been, again, what we talked about earlier, what are the issues that Texas has been a leader on,
Yeah.
The pro-life issue has obviously been one that Texas has dealt with and addressed. Now, Dobbs gives us even more ability to make sure that we're protecting life. Anything that you guys can see on the radar from that?
We really knocked that out of the ballpark. We passed legislation. It was preemptive legislation that essentially
as soon as Dobbs passed, you guys were ready and on it.
Yeah, so I think it went into effect 90 days, if I recall, once the Supreme Court made its decision.
Right.
We don't have abortions in the state of Texas now. We have there's an exemption for the mother's life. There is some dialogue about adding some additional clarity to that.
Okay.
I will tell you, when I read the legislation, it looks very clear to me that the doctor unilaterally can make that decision, and quite frankly, the only requirement we place on that doctor is that they report that the procedure was done to save the mother. So I'm still on the fence as far as whether that needs to be done or not, but that is a discussion. But now what we're doing is, now that you literally have over 1,000 little babies that are now living in the state of Texas every month, now what we're doing is we're paying probably more attention on foster care and adoption and making those processes easier. There's some burdens, I think, that are unnecessary that the state puts on those to make those easier. So that's been a focus the last 2 legislative sessions, and we'll continue to do that. I think there's more work that we need to do there.
Yeah. The last thing I'm thinking of is just immigration.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about before that Texas bears a lot of the federal burden, right? Because the border is right here, from Mexico to Texas, and so President Trump obviously has made illegal immigration, right, kind of a cornerstone for his administration.
That's right.
Is that going to help the state of Texas? Is there going to be extra funds that are going to be coming?
It's supposed to. Okay. The federal government's going to get a bill from the state of Texas. That decision's already been made. I think it's important for moms and dads, Texas citizens in general, to know that we are going to allocate another $6.5 billion out of the state budget for the border.
Okay.
And the reason why we're doing that is the Trump administration is being great. They're jumping on this quickly. But it is a huge, massive burden on the state of Texas that we're guessing that it's going to take the federal government over a period of time to, quite frankly, reverse some of the damage that the Biden administration's done. I mean, Texas has been amazing, and it's been a lot of it under Governor Abbott's leadership. I think everybody knows about we were actually sending illegal immigrants to other cities, sanctuary cities, and all of a sudden they had.
If you want to be a sanctuary
that.
city, let's put it.
Yeah, but we've actually.
Well, I remember the last time we talked, we were talking about New York.
Yeah,
and how New York was right. The mayor of New York.
The mayor
was
said we don't have enough money for this.
We can't do this.
And we're
this
like,
is ridiculous.
jump into the
what
pool.
the rest
Water's
of the
warm.
Doing. Amen.
But it's gotten to the point like the state of Texas actually built more miles of wall than the Trump administration did, and so what we're anticipating though is that's going to have to be ramped up. So we think over a long period of time we'll be able to decrease the amount of border funding as a state that we have to do, but we're not going from 6.5 million to 0. We just don't think that's realistic, and it's just a huge, significant problem. But we are seeing gains by the Trump administration. But we're gonna decrease that funding over time. But we're looking at right now $6.5 billion in the next budget of Texas taxpayer dollars. But we're optimistic that situation is going to improve. But I'll be going down the border. A lot of legislators will after session just to check to see how progress is being made.
And then that helps the state of Texas because you can reallocate those resources instead of trying to keep illegal people out, right? But helping the people that are actually here in the state.
Well, that's been part of the problem, right? Is even though we have the funding, we've had to take, for example, not only are we placing National Guardsmen, but we're taking DPS troopers away from their community. In fact, in our budget is hiring another. I think it's close to another 1,000 troopers. We've had to take troopers away from our communities and place them on the border. Well, that's actually not good. So
communities aren't as safe.
Yeah, and again, we're going to, and part of this is we're a growing state, so we need to add DPS troopers anyhow. God bless the men and women of Department of Public Safety in the state of Texas and all the great work that they do. But all that to say is the hope is over time that they get to go back to the communities, because quite frankly they didn't sign up for going down to the border and being in a hotel for 2 weeks and watching the border, right? They signed up for local patrols and investigations in their community. So over time we're going to restore that.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we're thrilled, right, that you're back in the Texas legislature. You're representing not only our state, but you're representing a biblical worldview.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And just so proud of the work that you've done. Proud that your bill is in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And maybe when the decision comes down this summer, we'll have a recap on what happened. Hopefully, it's a favorable decision, and we can talk about that. How you and the Supreme Court are now protecting our children and our families from this material that they don't need to have access to. So keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple months down in Austin.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. You're awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Journey. We hope this podcast provides information to help you raise your children, and it would help us tremendously if you would like, subscribe, share, and review this content on your favorite podcast platform. It is our pleasure to provide this information to our community, and we look forward to our next time together on The Journey.